Good evening. Hey, it's Dad. Welcome to daddrinks.com. It's Halloween. So that means, spooky things, vampires, Dracula, Frankenstein. And it also means that we're going to make up a Halloween drink called the Vampires Cloak. That's what we're going to do tonight. And then because every pour tells a story, we're going to tell a little story about Halloween back when I was growing up. So to make the Vampires Cloak, you're going to start 2 ounces silver tequila. Pour it into your shaker. Then you're going to do a half an ounce or a quarter of an ounce of blue curacao and 1 ounce of cranberry juice. And I mix that all in one jigger here. And then half an ounce of lime juice. Just to give it a little bit of kick, because lime always goes good with tequila. And go ahead, shake it up. See, that's always my fear. The shake is going to come right apart to a million pieces. And then what should come out of this, once you strain it out, is a wonderful purple concoction, just like the Vampire's Cloak here that I'm wearing. So it's a very dark purple, but it is purple nonetheless. So cheers, the Vampire's Cloak. Okay, so now the story. You know this whole thing vampires supposedly do? Yeah. I didn't do that. Not until Bela Lugosi, sort of, we're going to get to that in a minute, did it in Plan 9 from Outer Space. So if you know anything about Ed Wood was a huge fan of Bela Lugosi, who was a big actor in horror movies, especially as Dracula, back in the 30s, 40s, 50s. And Ed Wood loved Bela Lugosi, convinced Bela Lugosi to be in his magnum opus, Plan 9 from Outer Space. Except halfway through the movie, the shoot, Bela died. Ed had to continue the shoot because this was his big movie. This was the thing that was going to put him on the map. This was the thing that was going to win him an Oscar. Not. But he thought it was. So he went out and he found somebody else to play Bela's part so they could finish up the shoot. The problem was the guy looked nothing like Bela Lugosi in the face, was not the same body type, was not the same height, was not the same weight, and you obviously could tell it was not Bela. But Ed thought if he just walked around doing this through the whole movie, everyone would think that it was Bela Lugosi. And that's when the whole trope of vampires doing this and going, good evening, started. But that's not really what I wanted to talk about. That was just a nice little aside. What I wanted to talk about was Halloween back when I was a kid, back in the 70s and 80s. Halloween was much different than it is now for us Gen X kids. First of all, if you were getting a costume, it was not going to be handmade or something, like this with fabric and everything else that you bought down at Spirit Halloween. Oh no, it was going to be stuff that looked like this. Or this. That's nightmare fuel right there. I mean, that really makes Halloween. The whole plastic mask, the vinyl suits that covered your whole body were one piece, and generally were one size fits all, except one size fit none. I'm pretty sure that vinyl, if it ever came into contact with anything with heat or fire, you would instantly learn the whole meaning of stop, drop, and roll. Not only that, the plastic masks, you couldn't see out of them because all you could see was straight ahead because they were these little eye holes. Had no peripheral vision, had no idea what was going on the sides of you. The nose holes that you breathe through were like the size of pinpricks, so you couldn't breathe in them. And then on top of it, now I grew up in New England. So October in New England, back when I was a kid, usually it was cold. It was usually somewhere in the 30s or 40s when you actually went out at night, because you went out at night to go trick-or-treating. You didn't go out during the day when the sun was still up. You went out at night, and your parents who had no care about what you would wear most of the rest of the year to go out, decided that was the night that you had to not only wear this vinyl suit that kept all the heat in, but you also basically had to be dressed up like Randy in A Christmas Story, in a big, huge parka and snow pants and long johns and mittens and everything else. So you were not only not able to breathe, you were sweating, and it was just pouring off of you. So that was how your night started. But the nice thing about it was, when I was a kid and going out on Halloween, there was no trunk or treat. You can go to some central place like a youth hall or a church or a shopping center and do trick or treat there. Oh no, you went out into the neighborhood. And roughly from about the time I was probably, I'm thinking about 8, maybe 9, there were no parents involved. Like I have a little brother, he's 3 years younger than me. Yeah, I would take him out when I was 8. I was the adult. And the only rule that we had was my parents would set up a rule as to how far into the neighborhood we could go. Like how many blocks away, how many streets away, you can go this far, you can go that far. And then the only other rule was you just don't go to a house that doesn't have the front light on, because they're not giving out candy. So we would go to strangers' houses, people we had never met, because, you know, our neighborhood was pretty large, probably about, you know, half square mile or so. So it was pretty big. And we just go up to neighbors' houses, knock on the door, yell trick or treat, and they would give you candy. And just like nowadays, who's the best? Well, the best are the people who give you the full-size candy bars, not the snack ones. You got the full-size Reese's peanut butter cups or the full-size Snicker bars. You didn't want to get the bit of honey, the good and plenty. I'm trying to think of what else was really horrible candy, and those are the two that pop into my head.
I would eat bit of honey.
Those are that. Mrs. Dad Drinks chiming in, she would eat bit of honey. So those were the things you didn't want. You know, nowadays, like, people will tell you they don't want candy corn. I personally, she loves bit of honey. I love candy corn. I don't have a problem with it. So you'd have that. And then, of course, the other thing was that when you got home, so there weren't a lot of things that worried our parents, I think, back then. But the two things that did when you came home from Halloween was they had to go through your Halloween candy, and it wasn't just to take what they wanted and stash it away and go, no, you can't have that. It was because they had to search things like, see if there were any apples that had razor blades stuck in them, or candy that had been opened and might have been poisoned. The other big thing was, did you get any stickers? Because stickers were verboten. Because if you got stickers, they were inevitably laced with LSD. This was what we worried about back then, along with things like the Bermuda Triangle and quicksand, none of which has ever been a problem for me in my life in my 56 years. But anyway, so that's kind of what Halloween was like. Nowadays, these kids go out, they're going out when it's still, the sun's still out. You got 17 parents shepherding 4 kids, grandparents, you know, extended family, whatever, and it's 3 or 4 kids come up to the door, or they're going to places like I said earlier, shopping centers. Like we have a church up the street that's doing trunk or treat tomorrow night, where, you know, just a whole bunch of people show up, open up their trunks, and have candy in them. And I guess that's better than getting candy out of a house, getting it out of a trunk. I don't know how that works. But anyway, that's my story for this week. Check the Facebook page over the next couple of days. It's going to be a couple of reels up there. We did a bunch of riffs on making old fashions. But tonight, we're drinking the Vampires Cloak. Cheers. Make sure you go to daddrinks.com. Make sure you check out the YouTube on the YouTube page and like and subscribe there. And we'll see you next week. Please hit like and subscribe, and visit daddrinks.com for recipes, merchandise, and more fun stuff.